All right, we're less than 100 days, but Trump has signed more than 100 executive orders. Some do smack of direct retaliation, especially the one against big law firms that had anything to do with legal actions against him. Question: I thought he was against lawfare. Isn't this exactly what he says he opposes? Using the power of your office to punish people in a legal way? The firms are fighting back. Some of them are giving in some cases providing more than $100 million in pro bono services to Trump's administration. No conflict there. Is Trump trying to undermine the legal system? Or let's look at it differently. Does he have the right to do this? And if so, is it right that he is doing it? Harvard Law Professor Emeritus Alan Dershowitz. Professor, thank you for joining me. What are your answers to these questions?
Let's understand how it started. It all started with radical Democrats on the left proposing what was called the 65 Project. That was a group of radical lawyers, by the way, some Republicans among them, some D.C. Republican firms among them, that started to go after any lawyer who defended Trump, who defended people close to Trump, filed bar charges against them, including filing bar charges against me in Massachusetts. They were dismissed, of course, filing bar charges against me in Arizona, and anybody who defended Trump. I defended Trump on constitutional grounds in front of the Senate. But the 65 Project was established in order to deter lawyers like me from taking cases. What they said in their press releases is they want to make it impossible for lawyers to go back to their firms if they defended Trump. They want to make sure that they're never invited to speak at law schools. They want to make sure that their families are embarrassed. It all started with the 65 Project. And so there is a little bit of tit for tat here. Yeah, I would prefer to see no weaponization. I would prefer to see nobody going after lawyers. But let's understand that it began, as often it does, with radical people on the left going after people like me, who myself was a liberal Democrat, for defending Donald Trump. So this tit for tat has to stop. But we have to be focusing on both sides, not just the side that Trump is now using. Also, Trump is making a mistake by going after only Democrat firms. He ought to, if he's going to do this, which I hope he doesn't do, he also ought to focus on Republican firms that have used lawfare against him and against other people, because lawfare is just wrong, no matter who does it.
Well, he did do it. And I am a little surprised that you're equating what a group of private citizens did with what a president of the United States just did. I don't think that's tit for tat, Alan. I think it's someone swinging a bat at you and him coming back with a steamroller.
No, I don't think so. I think the people who started 65 were very influential. They made life impossible. They used bar associations. Bar associations are the government. They took licenses away from legitimate and decent people who just represented people. I agree with you. There's no comparison between the power of the president and the power of bar associations. But bar associations aren't just a little bat. I know many lawyers who have said they would have loved to represent Trump or other Republicans, but they can't afford it. In fact, a term was established. They don't want to be Dershowitz. My name became known as a result of that because everybody knew that the 65 Project went after me. It cost me over $100,000 in legal fees. I prevailed and won in every single case, but lawyers don't want to have to spend that. And not every lawyer is going to win. Some are going to lose, and there are some close cases. Sometimes they just were selectively prosecuted, but maybe they were guilty. But we have to look at all sides of this. Yeah, there isn't an equality, but we have to make sure that if Trump's going to do this, he does it equally and fairly, Republicans as well as Democrats. The same thing is true with universities. There has to be one rule for everybody. There has to be symmetry and equality. And we're not seeing that. We're seeing lawfare, and lawfare should end. I want to see lawfare end on all sides.
Hey, thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget, click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.